God damn it. That's what I was forgetting. 1 second. 1 second, everyone. Fuck me. This fucking piece of shit camera. Give me a second, everyone. I'll have to fix this. Oh my god, this piece of shit camera. I knew I was forgetting something. Okay, alright. There you go. We're done. Piece of shit camera. Does this all the time. I usually. It doesn't matter. Hello, all. Anyone who might be here. We are going to be doing Hanging Chads. Just a moment. With my buddy Kobe. So here we go. We're getting ourselves together. Click on this. All right. And we are. Hey, Kobe, can you hear me, friend?
I can hear you, and I can see you. How's it going, my man?
Thanks. Great. Now that you're here.
Oh goodness, sorry, hold on.
Okay.
We need to do this.
Okay. Crazy fun day. We're all over the place here.
Exactly. It's wacky. How are you, my man?
I'm doing all right. Yeah. It's nice to see you, friend. Since we haven't done this in a little bit. But here we are.
Yes, it's nice to see you. I don't think I mentioned this to you, but on Friday it was my 26th birthday. So this is like it's like my little birthday weekend. So I've been chilling.
I didn't know that. Happy birthday, buddy! I gotta.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's I'm getting a little feedback. I can hear myself. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. It doesn't look like it's picking up when you're talking.
Yeah, it definitely is. But if you have headphones, that'd be great. If not, that's fine. Then we're gonna just work with mute. But so your birthday is the 17th then?
Yes, yeah. My birthday's the 17th.
All right, I'm writing it down. I gotta put it in my calendar.
Very sweet.
I got a birthday calendar for people who mean a lot to me. That definitely one of them, buddy.
Well, thank you. I know it was actually a really good birthday. I typically I don't really like sometimes the the extra attention you get on the day. It can be a little overwhelming for me sometimes, but I don't know. For some reason, like for this year, I just kind of was like, for some reason felt like celebrating, so kind of was preparing myself kind of mentally for it. So it was really good. I went out with some friends on the day of and had dinner. I went out today with my sister and her kids and her husband, and so that was really fun. Just kind of went around. I got a book. Hold on, you talk. I'll show you my book.
Okay.
It's a comic. It's a comic version of Caesar's Julius Caesar's book about his conquest of Gaul. So it's like a narrativization of Caesar fighting ancient Germans. He fought them and he went up there, and that's kind of that's his big thing. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase "crossing the Rubicon."
Yeah,
comes from, which means to do to kind of like break a rule or to kind of do something that can't be undone. The reason he was on the other side of the Rubicon was he was up in Gaul. He was up in Gaul putting down what's the word? Revolts and these kind of things.
Yeah.
He had to bring his army back, and the rule was that if you were leading a legion, you would leave the legion on the other side of the Rubicon. So the legion would stay there, they would set up camp, and then you and your homies would go over the bridge, and you guys would go into Rome. And so that way you're kind of leaving your actual power outside of the city. Caesar doesn't do this. He rolls up into Rome with his entire legion of centurions which obviously is him saying to the Senate, it's me. It's me now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited about that.
So, I can't imagine a present more perfect for my man Kobe. Like, spot on from the people who love you. Great work. That's actually really, really interesting. And yeah, but I was aware of the Caesar story. Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. I'd want to check that out myself, really.
You know, I was actually I went to the comic store. I wanted to find there's a comic book that I've heard about it for a very long time called Transmetropolitan. That's like a cyberpunk kind of story. I've heard about it a lot, and I've seen it quoted a lot. I've just never read it. And I read just randomly. It popped up on my Twitter page, like somebody was quoting it, and I realized it was published in the year I was born, in 1997. So I was like, I feel like that's like synchronicities. That's a coincidence. So I'll probably try. I couldn't find a paper pack of that one, so I'll probably just read that online.
Yeah. I mean, it's old. I didn't realize it came out that long ago, but that does sound familiar. I haven't read it, but it does sound very familiar. I'll check it out if I can find it as well. If you can, or you can find it online, just let me know.
Yeah. How are you? How have you been?
Okay. Before I get to me, I wanted to say to you, I'm also the same with my birthday, so I don't like to celebrate that. I don't like the attention. Just want to commiserate with that with you, but still, happy birthday once again to my good friend.
Thank you. It's always awkward because people will be like, "What you doing?" And if you don't have some big thing planned, it always feels like awkward to be like, "Well, I'm just hanging out. I'm buying myself a pizza or some whatever, just normal little celebration you're doing." And they're like, "Oh, okay."
100%. I don't do anything. Now that I'm broke, I don't do anything. When I had money, I used to. Sometimes I would travel on my birthday.
Okay.
Yeah, but like I would also like my main thing was traveling on New Year's. My birthday's not on New Year's. So that narrows it down a little bit. But yeah, but sometimes I would travel there. And if I got money again, which hopefully happens at some point, I would also travel there. But I would travel all throughout the year. It's not really a huge birthday thing for me. But like, yeah, but now that I am broke, yeah, people will ask me what are you up to, like my family or something will ask me, what am I up to? I'm like, I'm not up to anything. You know perfectly.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm not doing anything. But like, I don't want like presents, and I don't want well, I guess someone's gonna give me something, and I guess I won't say no. But like, I don't want to party. I certainly don't want to party. That I absolutely no thanks.
There's always a lot of pressure when there's a party and it's a party about you. You know what I mean? Get together, but it's like a celebrating something, or I always feel like a lot of pressure. I was like, oh god, am I going to fail at my next venture?
So anyway, but otherwise, in terms of me, everything is status quo. So. So anyway, did you have a video? Did you want to watch today?
I didn't. I did bring the Atlantic piece about the Trump plan, but I don't know how much of that is just going to be like an opinion piece that's just kind of like talking about the Trump 2025 run versus what you had, which seemed to be more of like the official Heritage Foundation.
Okay, I thought you wanted to do something on Israel, or did you want to do you have anything? You're muted.
Yeah. So let me. If you want to pull up the other one, let me go look. There was a couple of our old friend Piers Morgan that were pretty interesting. Okay. There was you see the one with the newest one that is Mohammed Hijab versus Rami Shmuley.
Before you go, do anything else, you also like snapping your microphone is like popping. I don't know why. Okay. Like your connection seems a little funky. Maybe
Let me see.
Yeah. And I haven't seen the thing you're talking about. I saw. Cenk Uygur did a debate against Rabbi Shmuley, which sounds like a made up name, like a name that you say that sounds like to be like offensive to a Jewish person.
Shlomo is like another one, like Shlomo.
Yeah, like it does what it sounds like. I'd heard that name, but I thought it was like someone being offensive. Like, and then I saw the picture of Cenk Uygur, like next to this guy, right? I'm like, oh. That's a real person. Yeah. Okay.
Let me unplug my microphone to see if I can see some of them here.
Like Tyrone Johnson or something like that, man. Like it's really on the nose there. All right. Okay. So our friend Kobe will work on that. So we were talking about Project 2025. Let's see if I can pull up. I had a video on this as well. This is the official site. We're gonna get to this. It's from the Heritage Foundation. To my audience, this is from the Heritage Foundation. I'll oh, okay.
Yeah, I sent you one. If we get to it, there's a debate with Owen Jones, and I haven't watched it yet, but I'd be curious because some people were talking about this one.
Okay, all right. So do you want you think we should read through this or maybe watch a video? What do you think?
I was interested in the Trump. I was interested in the Trump thing, so I'd be curious about that.
Okay. No, sorry. I mean, like, do you want to read through this or watch a video on Project 2025?
Let me send you. So I did have. Let me get this. Hold on. Let me get this from you for you here, because I saw this from the Atlantic, which like I was saying, it was sort of a video going over the Trump 2020. I think the exact thing you're talking about here.
Okay.
So this one, I'm not sure how much. Like I said, I'm not sure how much of this one is going to be like an opinion piece. Pardon me. How much of this is going to be an opinion piece versus like actually informative? So
yeah, I have okay. Why don't we go over this? If there's any other questions, then we'll because I do have a video. Second Thought, right? I think that's the name. Did yeah, I did a video on this. But well, let's try the Atlantic first. Trump's second term will look like this. A former president and his allies have explained their plans clearly. By Jonathan Rauch. Okay. Ever since the U.S. Senate failed to convict Donald Trump for his role in the January 6th insurrection and disqualify him from running for president again, a lot of people, myself included, have been warning that the second Trump term could bring about the extinction of American democracy. Essential features of this system include the rule of law, honest vote tallies, and orderly succession, and would be at risk. Today, however, we can do more than just speculate about how a second Trump term would unfold, because the MAGA movement has been telegraphing its plans in some detail, in a host of ways, including the overt embrace of illiberal foreign leaders, the ruthless behavior of Republican elected officials since the 2020 election. Trump allies elaborate scheming as uncovered by the House January 6 committees to prevent the peaceful transition of power, and Trump's own actions in the waning weeks of his presidency and now as ex-president. The former president and his allies have laid out their model and their methods. Begin with the model of Viktor Orban. Now this seems like a more wide-ranging thing. This article, it seems more wide-ranging.
Yeah.
That. Why don't we? I'm gonna pull up that video and we'll start with that, and then we can come back to this one. Okay. All right. Let's see.
Yeah, that was a little bit like Donald Trump, famous real estate from New York guy, was elected president. Yeah, I mean he's racist. Like it's like yeah, a little too basics there.
Yeah. Let me let me bring up the bit. This is it. Yeah. Second Thought. This is the one I watched.
Made possible by Henson Shaving. It's almost that time again. Election season is bearing down on us, and we have some truly strong contenders this cycle. In the red corner, we've got Florida Man, the Penguin, this guy, literally the only black Republican in the Senate, and of course, the God Emperor himself, the man who's so confident that he won't even show up for debates, Donald Trump. And in the blue corner, we've got Oprah's spiritual advisor, Hassan's uncle, the chairman of a gelato company, and the reigning champion, the man who may or may not remember how he got there, Joe Biden. Yes, it's really shaping up to be a once-in-a-lifetime election season, and as always, a life-and-death struggle for democracy and the very soul of the nation, as they all seem to be these days, despite very few differences in Republican and Democratic governance. But there is one thing that actually does make this election cycle a bit different. Conservatives have been lurching towards fascism for years, with the Democrats not far behind, though historically they've been a little more subtle about it. But recently, the American right has dropped a hot new single, Project 2025. If you thought they were bad before, just wait till you get a load of this. In today's episode, we're taking a look at the new conservative plan to seize total control, and what it means for the future of the country. Brace yourself. Okay, Project 2025. What is it? Spearheaded by the Heritage Foundation, Project 2025 is a massive 920-page conservative manifesto detailing how they intend to give the president vastly more power, destroy bureaucracy, root out woke propaganda, appoint vetted far-right freedom fighters at every level of government, and have it all ready to implement the day the next conservative president is elected. Which they assume will be 2025, hence the name. Despite Trump obviously being the favorite, the plan is not dependent on any particular candidate winning, but can be implemented with any figurehead at the reins, who will become essentially completely unaccountable. God Emperor was supposed to be a joke, but here we are. You may have seen this book floating around online, The Mandate for Leadership. This is what most people assume Project 2025 to be, but this is actually just one part of a much larger conservative master plan. Project 2025 has 4 core pillars. First, the policy, as outlined in the 920-page document. This is where all the heinous and frankly disturbing policy proposals live, and don't worry, we'll look at some of those in a bit. 2, the personnel database, which has been described as the conservative LinkedIn, as if LinkedIn wasn't cringe enough already. This will be a repository for conservative resumes from people across all sectors and from all walks of life, to be selected as needed to staff positions in every level of government, at both the federal and state level.
Yeah, I recently heard a clip where this was being referenced, this specific thing right here was being referenced. It's like big reservoir they want to make of like resumes of conservative and sort of like pro-Trump kind of people to like staff various government offices in. The fascist Nazi commentator Nick Fuentes, I heard him talking about this, and he made a very startling point. I think he was true. I think it was a true point, but it was very startling in its truth, which is that even if only out of, I don't know, they said some crazy number of people they're like collecting for this. I don't know how many people, like, some 1,000 people. He was saying, even if of that 1,000 people, his followers, people that follow him, are called groypers. That's like what he calls his fans. That if he said that if even 2,000 of them are groypers, that increases the amount of influence that him and his ideology has in the American government, like a significant and substantial portion. I think that is true. And I don't know. I feel like that's just something that is it's very harrowing to think about, right? To think about the fact that people who someone like Nick Fuentes, it has gone from within the last from election cycle to now has gone from literally a random internet streamer who's debating Destiny to somebody who has had dinner with Donald Trump, and who Donald Trump's, as we see with this, I think we can all agree, like one of the subconscious goals of something like this is you're going to want to create a reservoir of people like groypers, of people like evangelical Christians, of people like extreme Israel firsters, people like that are going to that you're then going to be able to put into government in other places that are going to just so to speak ship. I'm sure you've heard this term of phrase, swing the pendulum. That's how you get the momentum. That's what this is what this is doing, trying to build the momentum. Government laws, both far right laws, left wing laws, have to be enforced, and those are enforced with human beings. And we're a very big country, so this kind of stuff.
I've heard the number, and your mic is still being a little weird, but like we can still understand you if there's nothing that can be done. But
yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't think I can do anything about it right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But anyway, like the number I've heard that they want to replace it changes from news source to news source, but what I heard was 40,000 is what they're looking to do. And the
that was the number that he said on the podcast, but I couldn't remember if I was just remembering that or not. But yeah, that makes sense. Like 40. You can imagine. I think his number. Sorry for interrupting you. But of that 40,000, 2,000 people that are Nick Fuentes is a Holocaust denying Nazi that believes that in every kind of thing that every possible right wing dumpster ideology you can think of. 2,000 of his fans. That's a loathsome idea.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. But we'll talk more about it later.
3, training. They've got a new online institute, basically PragerU, but for people who like to wear poorly tailored suits and fantasize about rolling back environmental regulations. This training program will create willing and able soldiers to serve on the front lines in the war on the woke cabal of the deep state. And finally, 4, the 180-day playbook, a step-by-step guide for the new conservative emperor to systematically implement the policies listed in the manifesto. Think IKEA assembly instructions, but for fascism. These 4 pillars are the key components of the project, and taken together, they offer a pretty comprehensive vision for the dystopian future the right hopes to usher in. It's all pretty alarming. But where exactly does this come from? Let's take a look at some of the names behind the project. If you flip through the first pages of the PDF, because let's be honest, we're not about to give the Heritage Foundation $35, you'll find a list of far-right think tanks, advisory groups, and business and government figures who contributed to the project. Some of the names include Donald Devine, once called by the Washington Post Reagan's terrible swift sword of the civil service, for his eagerness to slash spending and fire people. Stephen Moore, the well-known conservative author and right-wing economist, with such credentials as working for the very legitimate FreedomWorks and serving as a Fox News.
And this dude, like, lies non-stop. Stephen Moore, have you ever heard him? Like, this dude's been caught in so many lies, right? Like, and, like, confronted with them on, like, national TV. Like, even mainstream journalists who don't, who aren't in the business of correcting people, usually, will go after Stephen Moore. But he still gets invited. This dude, this guy's a fixture on like the cable news circuit, but like he's a known liar all the time. He's like his economic, he had like some sort of he was known for some sort of economic theory which like completely dissolved, but as always you just fail up in Washington. Stephen Moore, like this guy all the time, this guy just makes shit up. It literally doesn't matter, and you'll never not see him on cable news. It's fucking believable, but whatever.
Yeah, I've definitely seen him before. I don't think I've ever read anything from him. But
just like Google Stephen Moore lies. let's try it. Let's try it. Stephen Moore. Stephen Moore went down for the wrong thing. He lies, and lies. Stephen Moore, the that cons are dead wrong. Opinion, Stephen Moore, really. Common Dreams, Biden 6 lies. Stephen Moore's official. Trump's is Biden's 5. Oh my god, this is like a lot of stuff written by Stephen Moore. Because he's a writer, because he writes things as well. Then it goes full on. Or all right. Well, I'll have to look at exploit. I guess I'm just getting his articles. Turns out Stephen Moore was pretty awful sense of humor. He jokes, lame. He says, last point of Crucial says he was up for a seat at the Federal Reserve Board, but because his Washington, his messy personal life, bad jokes, offensive comments from decades ago did more to kill his nomination than his manifest lack of qualifications or his profound misunderstanding of basic economics. Sorry. I guess I'll do this some other time. But like I really like to just like take the. I mean, not like I can from my perch, but like I like to take this guy down a peg. This guy is awful. Sorry, but like we don't have to read a whole article about it. But okay, sorry about that. I'm on a bit of a tangent. Set me off.
Contributor, and Peter Navarro, who is notable for being one of just 3 people who worked with Trump for the duration of his term without being fired. He's also a little bit obsessed with China, having written 3 truly awful books on the subject: The Coming China Wars, Death by China, and Crouching Tiger. The manifesto credits 35 total authors, as well as dozens of contributors, all with their credentials listed. It's about what you'd expect. A lot of people from the Heritage Foundation, some military goons, a smattering of former Trump officials, extremist economists, and a considerable number of people who have worked in climate, energy, immigration, and legal positions under conservative governments. What you won't see a lot of in the acknowledgements is religious credentials, which you'd think would be important given how much the document leans on Christian language. This should be your first indication that maybe the people who loudly proclaim their faith aren't really all that Christian, and they're just using it to win brownie points among their religious conservative audience. There's actually a lot of overlap here with the topic of our last video on Christian nationalism. These people use religious rhetoric, but a little bit of digging reveals that the God they pray to is not the God of the Bible, but a mythologized vision of America itself. Much like fascists throughout history have relied on a glorious false past to act as a North Star to guide them into the promised land, so too have American fascists wrapped themselves in comforting mythology, proving that what they are doing is not only just, but divinely inspired. When you have a higher power on your side, it's pretty easy to justify horrific acts. Okay, with the brains behind the project out of the way, let's get into the nitty-gritty. What exactly do these people want? What's their end goal?
Could you pause right there?
Well, there are 4 main priorities.
I would be actually. I think there's a little bit more that you could kind of explore on this topic right here of the lack of religious people. Or I mean, I'm sure a lot of these people are religious, but people that are like religious first, or people that come from religious institutions in this Project 2025. And I think that that sort of highlights in some way. Maybe I'm wrong. I wonder what you would say here. Could this be seen as a sign that there is a more of a, for lack of a better term, the new right that is more it is more Trumpist than it is conservative, is less evangelical Christian, but is more, but is also maybe a little bit more nationalist, a little bit more openly patriotic, as he's maybe even as he's saying here, are a little bit more worship America more than they worship God. Do you think that that's a sign of a change in the right, not a positive change, but just a change in their ideology, or do you think that this is maybe just sort of, just as this? I don't know. What do you think?
I would say that sorry, to adjust something. Oh, what the fuck just happened? Why did my camera go out? What? That was weird. I didn't do anything to my camera. Okay, that never happened before, but whatevs. I would I'd say that the Christian right lost ground during the Trump administration. I think that they expected more and they got less. I mean, they get abortion, so like, hooray for them. But I think their triangulating ended up biting them in the ass, right? Like they made excuses for Trump, saying that, well, he's imperfect, but God uses imperfect tools to accomplish his divine work or whatever, right? Like, this person obviously not a Christian, obviously not aligned with their movement, just using it because they're going to vote for him. Literally, that's as far as his allegiance went for them. Now, there were people within his sphere who were, Christian nationalists, right? But, they tried to work through him, but this guy wasn't an avatar for them. And I think that, I don't know, I could be overreading this, but like, I feel like this Trump helped give them the space, like the rest of the right, the space to like move away from that a bit, right? To focus on what they want. Like, they were always going to be using that language because evangelicals are easily manipulated. And they were just going to vote for the person on the right who says abortion equal bad. We hate feminists, and whoever else is of the devil. So like that's like not like they're not a part of the movement. It's just that I don't think. I think they've been marginalized, and they know they've been marginalized. I think for a while actually, but they just got a shot in the arm. And that would be Mike Johnson, right? Mike Johnson, who's the new Speaker of the House, whose name is like so bland, right? Like, his name and appearance being so average and bland, to be forgettable. But don't forget him, because he is definitely part of the Christian nationalist movement, like 100% without a doubt. And I think that going back to the Project 2025 thing, I think this could be a big shot in the arm for them. Getting people in who believe like they do, even if the authors like aren't like tied to this ideology as much, aren't like true believers. Still, there's a great opportunity to get people in within the administrative government who are Christian nationalists. And they can do a lot of havoc. So I don't think they're vanquished by any means. I think they'll bounce back. What are your thoughts?
I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying here. I think this is just one of the first examples of this sort of just like, we're moving away from the Republican. This is a long cliche thing to say, but The Republican Party of your grandpa is dead. The Republican Party of your father is no longer. I think this is just a sort of another example in that kind of mode. Maybe this is my only just my personal memory. The Republican Party of my grandpa would be one that would go out of their way to highlight the religious people they're putting into Congress, and would go out of their way, or not Congress, but into government, and would go out of their way to sort of highlight the overtly religious placements, which is something that I feel like is sort of not being highlighted in this, which I think we agree there. That was just interesting to me.
Thank you, Gizmo, for the 100 bits. Much appreciated. And hope you're doing well. But yeah, so but like I wouldn't. Yeah, I just as long as I really want to, I guess, say that like they may have lost a few battles, but like the war is still raging with them. They are not down and out. You know, they're just. I think they're just looking for a proper avatar to enact their will. Mike Johnson is a very powerful ally that they've just been like out of nowhere. This opportunity been plopped in their laps, and I think they'll take full advantage of it. Oh, sorry, you want to say something? You're muted.
I wonder. I mean, maybe this is thinking out loud. I wonder if now we're talking about the sort of the relationship between, let's say, the Trumpist right and the evangelical Christian right. I'd be curious how which side is the Israel conflict going to benefit them? I think in some ways, I think that the increased criticism of Israel, and you're seeing even some people that are historically very pro-Israel pundits are even kind of breaking and are asking some pretty tough questions that would have never been asked. That's throwing a wrench in the Christian right. Zionist and Zionist Christian right alliance there is a very, very powerful link in the chain. And I feel like there is this strange frustration where there are more America First people, anti-Semites, just conservatives that are just anti-Zionist and just don't think America should be spending money in Israel, that don't want to support Israel, and those butt up with the evangelical Christians who support Israel for a metaphysical reason. They support it for religious reasons. And I feel like that's an interesting, it's a conversation a lot of people on the right don't want to have. You know what I mean? I don't know if you saw this, but there's currently drama happening at the Daily Wire because Candace Owens is pretty obviously sympathetic to the Palestinians. She interviewed Norman Finkelstein on her show yesterday, which was insane. It would have never happened 3 or 4 years ago. And Ben Shapiro is obviously doing nothing but going around and doing a massive tour of propaganda for the IDF. So it's a conversation a lot of people on the right would not like to have. And I'm curious to see who wins it.
It's hard to say what Candace Owens supports. I feel like in the past she's been pretty much like lockstep with the whole Zionist movement. But like not that she's pro-Jewish people, obviously, right? Not that being pro-Israel is being pro-Jewish, but she's like pro-Zionist, and I think that works well because I think she has like some anti-Semitic tendencies within her. And Zionists have no problem working with anti-Semites, if if the anti-Semites want the Jews out of their country, well, that's great because the Zionists want them in Israel, so it works out for them. But in any case, yeah, I don't feel like she's necessarily like pro-Palestinian. I think it's too far to say. I haven't seen this interview she did with Norm Finkelstein. There's first I've heard of it, but it feels to me that like she, while she felt slighted previously because she got called out for her anti-Semitic comments, and she's like giving just like very like slight pushback, was the bombing gonna stop, like things like that, and it at least this is my feeling from the outside, who hasn't been following the situation extremely closely. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but it feels like Ben Shapiro is like full blown, Zionist, full blown like Israeli government. So like he is not dealing with this well, right? Like I think he just assumed everyone and for good reason, would simply be on Israel's side within his organization. The fact that there was some resistance, like, set him off, and he's saying all kinds of terrible things about Candace Owens, which is good because we should say terrible things about her. But beyond that, like, I think Candace then is like, she's escalating, right? More to spite him, more than anything else. That's my feeling. I could be wrong because I'm not following that situation very closely because I'm not going to watch Daily Wire content like that. But that's what my feeling is, that she put some a bit of distance between her and the Israel like line, right? Like the political line. But then Ben Shapiro like yelled at her about it, and now she's like going further just to like show her level of independence, you know. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I read the Norman Finkelstein is like a far left guy, like insanely far left. I cannot. There's no universe. It's not like there's no universe when Candace Owens got talked to in the office by Ben Shapiro and then came out like a radical leftist. I think that you're totally right. That analysis there is she probably sees in her contract it says something about free speech, where I'm sure it says something about she's allowed to have whoever she wants. Is okay, sure. Who's the foremost? Norman Finkelstein I like him a lot. He's a very good speaker. He likes to call himself the world's foremost expert on Israel Palestine. I don't know. I feel like I don't know if that's necessarily. There's a lot of very intelligent people that have written a lot of books about the topic, but he's absolutely up there. So I think you're totally right. She's pushing it up totally up to the line. She's going as far as you possibly can. So it'll be curious to see how it goes.
We'll see. But yeah, like, I just don't want my side being, pro Palestinian freedom to think we've got like a brand new ally in Candace Owens.
I do think though that if you do view yourself as a partisan for an intellectual partisan, so to speak, not to use it as a term of shitting on you or anything like this, but if you view yourself as like actively on one side, the fact that someone like Candace Owens, I mean, that video almost has 1 million views already, and it's only been up since Friday. That's that is in the world of radical politics, that's called consciousness raising. Many of those people are evangelical Christians who would go on their entire life, and evangelical Christians. Many of them they support crazy things, but in their life they're very nice people, very normal people. They just go around their life, and they hear about some of the things that happens in Israel. They hear about some of these 25 mile by 7 mile, 1/2 population of children. There's 4 hours of electricity. There's barely any clean drinking water. You don't need to be a great moral philosopher to say that's horrendous. To say that bombing that population is unjust. You don't need to be that. You need to be a normal person with a heart. And so exposing people to that, I think that raises the consciousness. So even if Candace Owens doesn't agree, if her consciousness is not being raised, almost 1 million people have listened to the interview so far.
100%. I mean, like, this is the argument against platforming from the other side, right? Like, it's usually a leftist talking to someone who is awful on the hard right, and like getting yelled at because they're using a platform to reach people who they wouldn't have otherwise reached. Well, I'll take the win on this side, right? That a racist like Candace Owens being used to spread the message of like ever so slight compassion towards the Palestinians. I'll take it. But yeah, let's continue on.
Exactly do these people want? What's their end goal? Well, there are 4 main priorities. In their words, they want to 1. Restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. 2. Dismantle the administrative state and return self-governance to the American people. 3. Defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats. And 4. Secure our God-given individual rights to live freely. What our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. Okay, you can probably already see where some of this is going, but let's start with the boring stuff. The nuts and bolts of manipulating the federal government to serve the right. A lot of this project centers around gutting what's called the administrative state. This is stuff like the EPA, FEMA, HUD, the Fed, stuff like that. The humdrum logistical stuff that nonetheless often plays an important role. Or sometimes not. Looking at you, DHS. There's a lot of this stuff, so much so that it's often called the 4th branch of government, and it deals with the day-to-day operations of the country, everything from transportation to environmental regulations, food and water safety, and so on. Most of these agencies are created when a law is passed that makes people think, there really should be a group of people responsible for making sure food is safe for consumption, or whatever. The government slaps together an elite team of nerds, that is to say, subject matter experts, people who actually know what they're talking about, and there you go, you've got the FDA. The FDA then takes over the task of enforcing whatever regulations they come up with in administrative courts. But this is all really boring. All you need to know is that a lot fewer people die because the FDA exists, and we have fewer polluted rivers and extinct species because the EPA exists. Conservatives don't really like rules in general, especially rules that protect the environment or poor people, so these agencies need to go. It's not good enough that the president can appoint the heads of these admin agencies. For example, Trump appointing a fossil fuel executive to head the EPA. No, conservatives want complete power over everyone in these agencies. Because right now, the subject matter experts at, say, the EPA are not beholden to politics. They just come to work and try to figure out how to protect snails or something. Much of the argument here centers around whether these agencies are constitutional.
A little bit earlier in the video, he presents, when he's like presenting the Republican attack on the administrative state, so things like the EPA, he presents it as like, this is just like a bunch of dudes that get together and they're like, hey, we just all like non-partisanly agree that we don't want people to eat bad food and they don't want little frogs to die. And they just come together and they're subject matter experts. But then he points out that actually the EPA, these are very much like appointed industry, what's it called, like agencies, right? Like, like the people that control them and the ideological motives behind them are appointed by each president, and it changes, right? I'd be curious. I'm very interested in the ways in which you can find yourself defending things that you maybe in other places wouldn't defend, because you're trying to defend them against a more vicious attack from the right. We're trying to stop the right from totally gutting the EPA or the Department of Homeland Security or the Fed, or whatever the other agencies he listed.
You're mixing things up. There's two, because both of those statements they made are correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're politically appointed, and then they are career bureaucrats. So most of those agencies he's talking about are the career bureaucrats, and or like not just bureaucrats. I don't know. It depends on what you call a bureaucrat, I guess. But like these are people who just get like hired through like a normal hiring process, right? Whether they're subject matter experts, like a scientist in the science division, or they're like just like the daily administrative officers that just come up through a nonpartisan hiring process. And then on top of that, at the top, the ones who actually direct the agency are the political appointees. So there's both of those.
I think that I think there's. Thank you for like highlighting that nuance. My critique, just to kind of not ramble too much, is I'm a little aware of Second Thought. I'm a little aware of some of the circles he runs in ideologically. I have a feeling he's pretty far to the left. I have a feeling that if you were to push him a little bit further, I don't really think he really thinks something like the EPA is really like this nonpartisan, group of nerds that just gets together and agrees that we shouldn't have poisoned food. I think he would agree that it's an element of the capitalist regulatory state. Same thing with the EPA. The EPA exists to make it so that the capitalist system does not, consume all the minerals and make it so that we can't do anything with the land that exists. It's the foremost goal. As we say with this, the foremost goal is it's appointed by political appointees that come from the two political parties that both of them are staunch capitalists, the Democrat and the GOP. And so I just, I'm not trying to nitpick here. Just an interesting thing that came to my mind was, if in this video he's presenting a pretty sympathetic view of these agencies, EPA, whatever, Homeland Security. I don't know if you brought the Homeland Security, but the Fed. But I'd be interested to see how these same agencies would be presented in maybe a more economically presented video by the same figure. You see what I'm saying? Where if he's a big, and maybe that's just fair. He's saying, hey, you're talking about two different things. I think that you can be fair there. One's a larger critique, one's a more immediate critique. I think that's fair, right? But that's something I get. I notice. I wonder in some of these left-wing videos how much they say they support something, but I know they kind of more so they're saying, I don't support this thing. I more so don't support the right's attack on it.
Maybe. Okay, so I don't know Second Thought. I mean, I've watched a few of his videos, but I don't know this guy personally, so no way can I speak for him. But I'll give you my leftist take on this. Oh, and just he did mention DHS, but I mean, that was the one administrative agency that wasn't a flattering light. Like he implied that that one was useless, actually. um, but uh, like so for instance, I think your critique might work best if we're talking something like the SEC, right? Like or what's the FCC, no, not FCC, the federal
The firearm and tobacco.
no. I'm talking about on the financial side. So SEC, that's the Security Exchange Commission, but there's another one. The FEC is Federal Election Commission, but there's another
The
one.
Federal Trade Commission, FTC.
Federal Trade Commission. That's the one I was thinking of. Thank you. The FTC and the SEC. I think you might maybe make that critique there. I like it, maybe because those people like they work for they you know they regulate the financial service area, but like so many of them are from the financial services area, so maybe
Another example of this was back when Robert Mueller was investigating Trump, and there were tons and tons of people that were coming out and being like, Donald Trump is attacking the FBI. We need to protect the FBI. We need to stand by the FBI. And like, I think you can on one hand agree, like, well, yeah, this specific investigation is a good thing. But also in a larger sense, a left-wing critique of the FBI would be very, very critical of the existence of the FBI in general. And I think there are many people that were pointing that out at the time, where there are people that, there are conservatives pointing out these leftists that typically hate the FBI are now supporting the FBI because they're going after Trump.
Yeah, I remember that whole rhetoric. In fact, that was thrown in my face specifically by some conservatives. Look, I've talked about getting rid of those agencies like outright, like let's just get rid of them. But in a world that's not going to happen, I can recognize that it's an imperfect tool, that the FBI does serve like a purpose, like my idea was just like to file them all and then like start over from the beginning because it's so rotten to the core. Like with all the things they've done, like the institutional knowledge, like it's got to get rid of those people and start again. But that doesn't seem to be the critique from the right. They simply don't like law enforcement being able to investigate them, period. Like, I'm okay with them investigating a leftist organization if they've done something like illegal, right? If they're putting people in danger, if they're running like a sex ring or some shit like that, I don't know, like a child sex ring, then yeah, please investigate that left-wing organization. You'll get no pushback from me. But it doesn't seem like it's a principled thing on the right because they love law enforcement in general, right? It's just that they happen to be going after these right wingers during January 6th, but also in their schizophrenic like view of that event. Like, those people were actually leftists, so it's not a problem in the first place. Or they were tourists who were there, right? And they just like happened to walk into the building and all that, right? So they have like a lot of different explanations for that. But in the end, they're mad at the FBI for something. And so like when I push back against them, it's because I know there's nothing behind it, right? Like,
I'm sympathetic to that.
Yeah. And the other thing, and I think the only people who are seriously like, well, I don't know if it's called principle, but like, or committed to the end of the FBI are people on the violent, racist right, because the FBI will occasionally bother to infiltrate them and break up their rings, so like that's like the only group that will actually give a shit. But back to like the larger point on all the other agencies. Again, I don't know Second Thoughts, so I can only speak for myself. I would say that I wouldn't say like the EPA is a tool of like the capitalists. I mean, the EPA gets in the way of like real estate developers all the fucking time. Like they can't stand the EPA. I think there's a reason why there's this effort that Project 2025 is part of to dismantle the administrative state, because it does butt up against those capitalists. I think there is a neutral stance of them. Like there's a function they've been given, and like a good machine, they like do that function. Now, whether they do it well or not depends on who's at the top, right? When Trump put Scott Pruitt there, who hates the EPA. I'm not sure if he was a fossil fuel executive. He might have been at some point. That would make sense. But like he did everything he could to dismantle the EPA, and to grind it to a halt. And the people who were pushing back against him were those administrative hires. And so the plan, again, I'm not sure how, if people are watching this, how much have you gotten it so far, that the plan is to get rid of that administrative of those administrative hires, as many as possible, tens of thousands of them, to just like wipe them out, so that when another Scott Pruitt is in charge of these types of agencies, then he'll have a workforce that is behind him, that he can use to actually enact. They will not just grind things to a halt, but like reverse course on protections, like clean water. Just kind of get rid of all that stuff. Get rid of those notions. Like people who would back them for like if you wiped out a couple hundred jobs at the SEC, right? Just like go full be full pro hedge fund, you know, rather than just like tolerate them and not really push back against them, be generally ineffective. They'd use their power to enhance like the worst of capitalism. So I don't know. I said a lot. Does any of that make sense?
I did. I think you made I think you made a relatively compelling case of why you can kind of have this like on one hand critique and another critique. This like sort of dual approach in which you view some of these bodies, I think, is helpful. Where you view it as one side of it is these more a more directly appointed side versus a more bureaucratic and credentialed side. I think that when you view it through like that, I can see a little bit more what someone like Second Thought or somebody else might be saying when they're showing one-handed sympathy for these organizations, while on the other hand, having some sort of very fundamental critiques. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and this is like what happened with the EPA, and also with the within the Justice Department, the part that the Civil Rights Division in the Justice Department, like the Civil Rights Division in the Justice Department is one of the ones that conservatives they fucking hate, because of course they do, and that's like the first thing they tackle when they get into power, is trying to get rid of them, and so you'll have like a lot of people leaving in that division when a Republican gets in office. But for the EPA, a lot of people left under Scott Pruitt. Under the Trump administration, a lot of those administrative people were either pushed out or just like said, like, I just can't do my mission here. And under good faith, I can't be here anymore. Those people actually did care about their jobs, right? Again, how effective they were, that's another issue. But they did care about the mission of the organization. And they felt under like a monster like Scott Pruitt that it just wasn't going to happen. So, yeah. All right, let's go.
Or something. Much of the argument here centers around whether these agencies are constitutional. Conservatives like to claim that since the Constitution didn't explicitly say federal agencies like these were part of their master plan, they're government overreach and should be dismantled. Historically, federal courts have disagreed with this assessment, so until now, we can rest assured that our milk has been pasteurized and our water isn't contaminated with lead. But here's the thing with the whole constitutionality argument. Who cares? Most countries around the world scrap their constitutions entirely when the people decide they're no longer relevant or they need to be overhauled. Only the United States has this weird reverence for the Constitution and the Founding Fathers. Part of that is due to the relatively short history of the country. The US has only really existed for a couple hundred years. When you look around the world and see some of your peer nations have a couple thousand years of history, you might feel the need to mythologize your past just a little bit to make your nation seem special. The Founding Fathers have been elevated to godlike status, especially among conservatives. But the truth is, they were a bunch of frat boys. Okay, not all of them. Ben Franklin was 70 and Washington was 44. But a lot of them, dear viewer, are younger than you are right now. Alexander Hamilton, the one with the annoying fan club, he was 21. And he wasn't even the youngest. Anyway, the point is, when you look at historical events without the rose tint of mythology, you see a bunch of normal people just kind of making it up as they go along. It's normal that things change over the centuries. What's considered constitutional should reflect the values and norms of the time.
So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll give two thoughts. The first thought will be of the video, and the second thought will be the argument presented in the video. And the reason I say this is I don't think this video just presented anything close to a compelling case for a very, very strong argument. Initially, he starts his little segment by saying, who cares about the Constitution? Who cares? Other countries don't do this. They throw away their constitutions. We're a young country. But then the case he makes is that, again, that we're a young country and that many of our founding fathers were young. And then, that's a muddle. I get what he's gesturing at, but that's muddled in my personal opinion, right? Who cares if they're young? That doesn't matter. Maybe they're geniuses and they're young, right? I don't know. Many of the country, that's the fact that other countries throughout their constitution, many other countries also have lots of wars, and we've only had one civil war. So I would say, again, maybe that's a good thing. I kind of also, we have inbuilt in our constitution a way to change our constitution. So it's not like we have to just only do what a 25-year-old guy in 1776 thought, so, and then I don't know. I'm a little critical of this. And you know me, I'm not like the hugest constitutionalist in the world, but I would say, from what I understand, from my civics understanding, the centrality of the Constitution is very, very central to the American government staying together as 50 states, and that not being followed is a really huge deal that could lead to really bad things. So maybe, I don't know, maybe one could argue, before I let you talk here, because I rambled a bit, one could very much argue saying just because it would cause a lot of problems to undo the Constitution doesn't give justification if the Constitution is unjust in some way. We obviously went to war because of slavery. I would agree with those cases. Just because it would cause lots of strife doesn't mean it's not just. It is, we shouldn't not get rid of a bad thing just because it would be a big deal to do it. But I also think that just because the Constitution is old and it was written by young people who are making up go along, I'm not convinced. What are your thoughts?
I almost entirely agree with you here. That that's a very dangerous idea. I was 100% going to say yeah, other countries, they get rid of their constitutions usually after some horrible conflict. Okay, I guess let's try it again.
Yeah, for example, the country of Mali, they decided to get rid of their constitution, and the military, they had an election. They're guys, we need a new one. We need a new constitution, guys. Let's get a new one, guys.
Yeah. There's I think it's actually a really interesting thought. I'm sure there's been lots of think pieces about this previously, right? But this obsession. I think obsession is probably a really good word for it, because I'm not sure if it's love. I think it is a focus, an extreme focus we have on the Constitution, but it's a thing that we have elevated in of itself. I think some people, in the way that we talk about the founding fathers, yes, they are elevated to some sort of demigodhood within their minds, 100%. But even for the ones who aren't on the left, right? Still, we look to the Constitution, right, as the central binding document. And I think it definitely does unite us in a way that others don't. When we're talking about a fascist takeover, the thing that I'm going to use to convince a right-leaning conservative, right, is a moderate type of conservative, is that, hey, they're going to get rid of the Constitution, right? They're going to give them the protections of the Constitution. That's the thing we can bond over as Americans. But there is this document, and that is the reason why our country is the way it is, for good or bad, for however you might look at it. But that is the core of America, and to simply get rid of that and replace it with something else, then what do we have in common, right? Then it's just like another thing that exists within our political environment that can change, right? And if it can change once, well, then it can change again, right? We can get rid of that. If it is it more left leaning, then you're gonna hate it, right? Mr. Conservative. If it's more right leaning, then I'm gonna hate it, and I'm not gonna have any allegiance to this thing. I'd much rather change it. Like, we have even the Constitutional Convention, we can change parts of it, right? Without getting the whole thing. But we can change parts of it. I think that's a better idea to keeping this country together than not. I think that this obsession again works for and against us. I think it works for us when we can understand that it is a unifying political document. I think it works against us when we grant godhood to the people who wrote it, right? And then and usually, well, not even God, but let's say sainthood. Saint. This is better here for Americans. Sainthood to those people. Grant them more power than they have, and then wrap them in Christianity, saying that that God gave him this document, and they were working. They were his vessels and all that. That's no good. That's not helpful to anyone, really. But yeah, I would never be so flippant as the way Second Thought was to be. Just say like, oh, we could just get rid of it, and it's no big deal. Yes, they were ordinary people who did that. I mean, they were learned for the time, right? But they were just regular individuals. That's true. But you don't have to focus on them the way I don't. Focus on the document. Focus on how we can make that document better. It has the ability to do so. If you ever want to say anything else.
Yeah, the last thing I think, if I had to respond directly to this, I just thought of this. His big critique is that they were just guys making it up as they go along. I don't know if he's met Americans. I would absolutely describe us in our current state as making it up as we go along. I have the idea that we've made it up, we've got there, we're no longer going along. No, I don't even know. If anything, I feel like a lot of these, it's as you just said a moment ago, we are still very much doing it. Yeah.
I can only imagine a new document being worse, right? I would only
exactly.
As a leftist, he should know that we don't have the power, right? This is, if I was gonna pick a point in history to do this, it wouldn't be this point, right? I wouldn't do it now.
AI, we literally basically had a big AI revolution, literally within about a year. It's been about 1 year since these AI chatbots have gone off, and they're getting crazy fucking good. Could you imagine if we made our new constitution in 2019, pre-pandemic, pre-AI, pre all this shit, pre-Russo-Ukraine war, and we wrapped ourselves up in saying, oh, we can't go and we can't, it's against, maybe some sort of extremely complicated process to give funding to other countries, which would have made it impossible for us to fund Ukraine, or impossible for us to hold back Israel. All those things would have been, at the time, would have felt awesome. 2019, getting out of Afghanistan, no COVID, Trump's getting out of here. It's fucking epic. We're rewriting the Constitution. This is awesome. 2 years later, pandemic happens, this happens, that happened. History starts again.
Yeah. Just let's hold on to the Constitution. Let's just there might be a time where we have to let that go. There might be. And I have so many issues with it. I really do. I really fucking do, right? Looking at you, Senate, right? But I'd rather do the hard work of working to fix it, rather than just saying, oh, I'm gonna toss this out and get luck. Because I think,
yeah, and then also, now that I think of it even more, it's we're 9 minutes into this video. We have another more or less 9 minutes left. It's about halfway done. Outside of just a sort of vague appeal to individualized morality, he's criticizing God and government here. He doesn't want to make any kind of religious claims. Outside of just a general appeal, don't be a conservative, he's already said we should throw out the Constitution. So as you were saying here, the other go-to in a secular society is saying, well, we have an agreed upon set of rules that everybody in society gets to follow, the Constitution. And if you, for example, what would be the argument against one of the first ones, said something about sanctifying the family, Sanctifying the family very much overrides the pursuit of happiness, the individual liberties of gay individuals or asexual individuals or transgender individuals who are American citizens and have that constitutional right. You cannot, that would be the argument. You'd be making a secular argument, defending it with the Constitution. You're not making a moral argument necessarily, sort of making a social code argument, right? And that's what you need to do, because as he says, I can't make an invocation and say God spoke to me as a pillar of flame and told me that conservatives are evil. Like, I can't do that. And that's more or less what's happening if I say, well, I personally believe that conservatives are bad, ergo, don't be a conservative. Like,
Yeah, I think you made a really good point. I didn't even link those two things. Again, I think he should have focused his critique on the founding fathers, just to say that they were regular human beings, don't make them saints. But this document they created is worth us protecting, because what is, just like I said previously, like, what is your argument to a conservative, right? That this thing that their team, whatever, right, is doing might be a bad thing, right? Like, what is the argument? Simply, like, you don't, I don't agree with their principles, right? Like, well, a conservative is going to vaguely agree with their principles. Like, it's got to be, we have this Constitution, they're going to throw it out. They're going to destroy it. The threat of losing the Constitution is a thing that unites us, most of America. And if we don't have that, I don't know what I have in common with these conservatives. I honestly don't. I don't know why they wouldn't want to stay in the same union as me if we don't have that.
I switched to a different mic. Is this hearable?
Yeah, it's actually much better.
Okay. Oh, yeah, it's probably all over, but it's no clipping, so it'll be a little bit better. Over. No, I was setting up my mic, but I was listening to you and I agree. In my opinion, that is always the horrible, scary fear of a hypothetical future America, is we go away from a constitution and it goes to basically mob rule, 1800s. What is the law of the town that you find yourself in? And that's, again, as you say, like that's what happens when you don't have a large civil society. So
yeah. All right, here we go.
That little tangent aside, let's get back to the goals of Project 2025. We talked about the boring stuff, wanting to gut the administrative state, but what else is in there? It's 920 pages after all, they've got to have some other ideas. Well, a lot of it is what you might expect. As Trump stated on numerous occasions, they want to kick the cultural Marxists out of the Department of Education, demolish the deep state, and combat woke ideology at all levels of government. They plan to do this by making extensive use of Schedule F, a piece of legislation established at the federal level by Trump, which allows the president to fire federal government officials at will, presumably for not sufficiently bending the knee. The project calls for an executive branch with essentially unchecked power, making the president basically unaccountable to Congress. They want to dismantle the liberal system to build one more favorable to conservatives. That means scrapping environmental protections, moving away from globalism, punishing corporations for DEI language, which is funny because it sounds like they actually think these corporations genuinely believe their DEI statements. They want to escalate tensions with China by ending economic engagement entirely, crack down on immigration, criminalize LGBT expression. They claim that any talk of gender, gender identity, and so on is pornography and should be banned, and has no First Amendment protections.
And they actually want to ban, from what I understand, straight up pornography, right? So they think that gay people talking about gay people is pornography, and they want to get rid of that. But they also want to get rid of pornography, straight up. So that's just a thing.
Yeah, I feel like this is this is also a this is going to be a fun culture war if that ever really tries to be done, like on a federal level, between the more pro-capitalist conservatives that actually don't really care about porn because it's actually like a really lucrative, it's like $1 billion industry, and it's actually like a what's it called, what's the term, like an industry innovator when it comes to like streaming and downloading services. A lot of that stuff, from what I understand, a little bit more about like internet technology stuff. A lot of that stuff was developed for porn websites in the early 2000s, so they could download shit quickly, so you can stream shit to your phone. I had an iPhone. Many of the first websites to have integration onto smartphones, where it wasn't YouTube, it wasn't bassprofishing.com. I'll say that. That there's a lot of people, a lot of politicians, their opinion comes from donors. Those donors have no interest. They have no interest in seeing regulations on pornography, have no interest in seeing those kind of things. And versus, again, there's a moral argument against it. What is the argument against pornography? It's a moral argument. It's one that has to do with what's the point of sex? What's the point of these images? How are we presenting images in society? Capitalists It sells. It sells like hotcakes. Why wouldn't I do it? I'm an idiot to not do it. I'm an idiot to not sell my server space to a porn provider if I'm a capitalist, because it's money. It's the most lucrative possible thing in the whole world. It's an endless stream of a financial gain. People never do not want to look at that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I was just gonna make a quick point beyond what you were talking about, like the innovating in the internet space. Even before that, like porn has specifically been at the front edge of technology. Even when we're talking about home video, like VHS, right? There was like Betamax and VHS, and Sony, who created Betamax, didn't want to like license its like technology to porn companies, but VHS did. And so a lot of those original VHSs that people were buying, they were choosing between these two systems. Yeah, they chose VHS for coincidentally, right? Coincidentally, for research purposes, they've chose VHS.
Oh, I was just gonna say, this is one of the ways that I think demonstrates the power of capital over American society, and in many ways the inability of whatever the regulatory state to address it. It was not any government regulation at all anywhere that made Pornhub take down all those videos. About 5 years ago, Pornhub took down millions of videos, and they changed the way that you had to upload videos. It was credit card processors. Credit card processors were the ones that actually got the dam to break, because they told them they were no longer going to process their payments. And they didn't want to have, it's not good news to say, hey, you're processing payments for my abduction, of videos of my assault, of videos of my of the worst night of my life. That does not go very well. And again, if that's how much power porn companies can have, how much do you think the people that make the new drug that makes you fat or skinny? When people need to have there's one company that produces the anti-fatness drug, and you have millions of people that need to get that. What do you think influence that company's going to have? You know what
I mean? Yeah. But anyway, I didn't mean to like distract you with the point thing. I just wanted to like.
God damn it, Prime. God damn it, Prime.
But yeah, like they don't like gay people, and they're calling their speech porn. But like, I just wanted to just make it clear that they also were just going to ban.
And so on is pornography and should be banned, and has no First Amendment protections. They want to scrap labor discrimination policies. Quote, maintain a biblically based, social science reinforced definition of family, meaning scrap protections for same-sex marriage.
Social science reinforced. Like
biblically, but again, like going back to the Constitution, you have a separation of church and state. I'm sorry to hear like a biblically enforced thing.
Yeah, biblically based, and then social science reinforced. But like, what social science? They don't have social scientists that enforce them. They have like theologians. They have Christian apologists who back them up, right? Who say this and this is awful for the family or for Christ or whatever the fuck, right? But like serious social scientists actually aren't backing up anything that they say. So like that's what.
I wonder if that's just a dog whistle. Now that I think about it, I wonder if that's just a dog whistle for the whole man and woman's biological sex thing. They're saying like a social sciences thing. They're saying like we're not talking about this gender identity nonsense. You know what
I mean? Maybe.
And plan to, quote, secure our God-given individual rights to live freely, unless of course you're one of the aforementioned groups they intend to criminalize out of existence. In that vein, to touch very briefly on their views on pornography, if you read the text, they basically just mean any discussion of gender, abortion, or any identity other than straight and cisgender. They want all instances of this kind of language stripped from society. While it's a little cliche to compare the conservatives to Nazis, you know what books were the first to be burned? Which institutions were the first to be shuttered? Books on gender and sexuality, and institutions that studied these topics. But okay, we know elected conservatives are like one step removed from outright fascism at this point. But how are they justifying this? Yes, we all know they just forced this stuff through if they could. But at least for now, they still have to play by the rules of Western liberalism. So the key to their plan is to lean on unitary executive theory, which dates back to the devil himself, Ronald Reagan. In a nutshell, this political theory suggests that maybe having 3 separate but equal branches of government isn't a good idea, and that instead the executive branch should dominate the relationship. Reagan's team came up with this notion to help facilitate deregulation, and it kind of just stuck. Every president since Reagan has made use of this theory to wield just a little bit more power than they probably should have. Bush Jr. justifying his invasion of Iraq, Obama justifying widespread US deployment overseas, Trump's Muslim ban, and so on. Now, the Project 2025 ghouls want to make sure the president has essentially unchecked power, that Congress cannot prevent the president from doing what they want to do, however heinous their pet projects may be. There's a whole conversation about unitary executive theory in government circles. People are writing books about it and having very important conversations with very smart people. And you know what? That's what makes this so scary. The Republicans talk a big game about destroying cultural Marxism or waging war on woke, but that's just bluster. When they start coming up with justifications within the liberal framework, the Democrats will cave like they always do. Every single time we see them play ball with the far right, they cede a little more ground each time. Then you get a president like Biden, who just straight up accelerates the process by speeding up border wall construction, approving a record number of oil drilling permits, and then when he inevitably loses because everyone is upset with him, the Project 2025 people swoop in and the Democrats just go along with it because it's technically legal. Not to do it again, but most fascists throughout history have come into power through technically legal means. And then they change what's legal so you can't get them out again. Well, that's all pretty grim, huh? What's the solution here? Do we just vote harder? No.
Could you pause
do
real
that
quick?
if you want.
Oh, hold on. Let's finish the video. We're
Oh
almost
yeah,
done.
I'm sorry. I said that I was muted. I said that at a weird time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is almost done. So I just want to get to it. Then we'll.
Especially if you think you can make a difference at the local level. But things have gotten worse for us with every single president. And things have certainly gotten worse for people living in the third world as the US gets more and more vicious abroad as our empire declines. The solution is the same as it's always been. Mass movements. Join an organization, unionize your workplace, learn to defend yourself and your community from fascist vigilante violence. Keep yourself safe online, learn your rights, educate yourself and those around you. Things like Project 2025 don't happen in a vacuum. There is an economic base to these developments. The US is losing ground on the world stage, and will soon be superseded by China as the dominant economic power. Domestically, the average worker is worse off now than in living memory. We can't afford the skyrocketing cost of housing, food, healthcare, utilities. Everything is going up, except wages. We have no mandated paid sick leave or parental leave. We have no benefits, no labor protections, no chance for advancement as more and more companies move to the gig model of employment. These are structural problems caused by the very nature of capitalism. Run the simulation 1,000 times and we'll end up right here every single time. The race for endlessly increasing profits results in monopoly, overaccumulation, a falling rate of profit, economic desperation among the masses, and a surge of reaction that carries fascism to the very top. You want a different result? Break the machine that powers these societal evils. If capitalism is allowed to survive, we will not. I mentioned at the
So he's gonna do an add-on for razors, Henson's razor. So if you want to buy a Henson razor, go to Second Thought and click on his link below.
I'm going to end my video by being that we need to smash the world capitalist machine. But before you go, you want to have a clean-shaven face when you're smashing that capitalist machine. Hanson razors are here to make sure that you're looking great when you overthrow and you bloody the streets with the capitalist overlords. Hanson razors. Use product code Lenin Mao Stalin, and you'll get 5% off. Yeah. I love YouTube. I love living in Cyberpunk 2077. I love turning on Cyberpunk 2077 and being like, oh, why is my computer just showing outside? Why am I just seeing the world I live in with no social commentary at all? What the hell? I don't know. I thought that was funny.
But yeah, so you want to say something?
Oh, I mean, I the main thing, like, something that kind of caught my attention here. I have some nitpicks here. I think some of the prescriptions are not where I would put it. I think a lot of the descriptive stuff, I think there's a reasonableness to it. One thing I wanted to say, the pause earlier, pointing out the whole unitary executive theory stuff is a way better comparison to Nazis for the Republicans than, in my opinion, than it is some of the culture war stuff. Culture war stuff is nasty. I've defended trans rights on this panel a lot. You know my positions on these things. I strongly believe in individual freedom, including in the bedroom and including for gender identity. But no, the way that the Nazis were talking about Jewish people in not even in the 1930s when they took power, but in the 1920s when they were doing the beer hall pooch, it was much more explicitly genocidal, much more explicitly segregationist than the speech towards transgender people. And that's not to denigrate, that's not to deminimize speech of transgender people. We're in the 21st century. This is the current situation. This is the current issue. I think in the current situation that transgender people need to be talked about in a specific and a unique way. But that comparison, in my personal opinion, is just weak, and it's better if you focus on the unitary executive theory. Because as he said here, that's what the Nazis did. They came into power through elections. They appointed Hitler, and then Hitler used the Enabling Act to get rid of the democratic institutions of the Weimar Republic. And that's what they want to do here. They want to come into power electorally and then use the electoral power to get rid of electoral power. That's more Nazi, in my opinion, than the culture war stuff, which, as he says here, and I agree with him, is the bluster. That's the frosting on the cake to get the reactionaries to take a bite.
I mean, true, but like also he wasn't comparing. To be clear, he wasn't comparing the Nazis' rhetoric of Jewish people to the like anti-gay propaganda, right? That wasn't what he was comparing them to. He was comparing to the very real events of Nazis going to
it was the Institute of Sexual Research.
Yeah, like Institute of Sexual Research. Yeah, and like finding books on sexuality. On
he said it was the first. It was the first that they burnt, and it was the first they did. That is not the case. The first absolutely was books of Jewish literature, books about Jewish in Germany. This is the beginning. It is absolutely true that they kind of the social degeneracy, as they said, was an element. They talked about it all the time. But I think again, like you're trying to, in my personal opinion, this is a it's an attempt to look back in history to find similarities and to create a narrative that makes it seem like there's more of a trying to get people, trying to.
But there is a narrative. But there is actually a narrative here. No, they burned and banned books on on the LGBT that were pro LGBT, right?
Mm-hmm.
That talked
but
about
the narrative
this.
is that
we
that's
lost
like
a lot of research on that area that happened there. So like when he just made the simple comparison that like one of the, I don't think he said it was the first thing. I think he said one of the first things.
He did specifically say it. Yeah,
maybe,
he just said this was the first thing.
Okay,
if the only narrative he wanted to say, be very clear, if all he said in this was saying that we should be, that it's very common for fascists to find a marginalized community, to use that marginalized community as their scapegoat, as in which it's the big bad, all the problems come through the Jews, all the problems come through the Armenians, all the problems come through the trans people. Totally agree with that completely. The narrativization, where you're going back in history and you're creating a narrative, is where you say the first things they burnt was this such and such. The first things they did was this and that.
That's fine.
That'd be my criticism. I think it's a little bit before the Biden bit. I think it's going to be a little bit maybe close to like where his arm is about there. Yeah.
Here it is.
To touch very briefly on their views on pornography, if you read the text, they basically just mean any discussion of gender, abortion, or any identity other than straight and cisgender. They want all instances of this kind of language stripped from society. While it's a little cliche to compare the conservatives to Nazis, you know what books were the first to be burned? Which institutions were the first to be shuttered? Books on gender and sexuality.
Okay, it's just like that statement right there. The idea, the first institutions to be shuttered. Absolutely not the case. It was Jewish institutions. Specifically, it was in universities. They would go to they did the same things they do now, where they would go to universities and they would say such and such social studies department of the this and this university. Look at this. It's 75% Jews, and all they talk about is socialism. Shut it down. So all I'm pointing out here, I'm going to be very, very clear. I'm not trying to say like, oh, you should never make the comparison. If you wanted to make a comparison between treatment of trans people and treatment of Jews, I think there is a historically accurate comparison to be made. I think right here we go a little bit too far and opens up a hole for criticism that doesn't need to be opened up. And even later in the video, he makes an even stronger comparison, which is the unitary executive theory, which is identical to what the Nazis did with the Enabling Act.
But to be clear, he wasn't trying to make a connection between the Nazis and so trans people and treatment of Jews in Germany, right? He wasn't trying to make that comparison.
What do you think he's comparison? Because that is my interpretation.
It's the treatment of the LGBT community in Germany to the way they're happening in America now. So
you think it's just a little bit more. So it's not just trans people; it's more broad to the LGBT community. I mean, I would argue that my criticism remains the same.
I don't understand why that wouldn't be a narrative though. Like, okay, we can agree that like the Jews got hit first. Fair enough, right? But the heart of his argument that like fascists attacked the LGBT community then as they are now in a similar fashion, a very similar fashion. Why is that not like an appropriate narrative to create?
Well, because it takes the timeline of history and does like switches it around. If all he wanted to say was just that they are using their scapegoat in America are groups like black people or groups like
It
trans
doesn't
people.
switch anything around. I don't understand why.
You
if
agreed
he
with
says,
me.
if he said, okay, he said the first. Okay, fine. Okay, so like let's edit that out and just say all the same things, right? But like one of the first things.
I would absolutely say that, and again, in my personal opinion, this is an example of trying to create a historical, and like, I'm sorry for repeating myself. We're trying to create a historical narrative that is not there. The first groups that an organization like the Nazis or other kind of eliminationist groups go after, the first groups they go to, and the first groups that they shutter, that is very, very integral to their ideology and their view of the world. And trying to paint that not as being first done to the Jews, but being done to LGBT people, it's just simply not true. If you wanted to say that he could edit the argument in sort of linguistically simple ways, I would agree. But linguistically simple ways can also, that can significantly change the nature of an argument. But that'd be my case here.
It doesn't change the argument, right? Look, okay, so the Jews were first, fair enough, right? But like, I don't think if you drew him out in this conversation, that he would say that the Jews have never been a target of the right? Like they continue to be.
Of course not. No, I don't think you'd ever say that.
Sure. Okay. So like, he's making beyond them being the first, right? He's making a very true comparison between the far right treatment then and the far right treatment of the LGBT community now.
If you change, again, like in my personal opinion, if you change the argument in a way that is pretty quintessential and pretty, yes, I would agree. I would agree with it if you change it in ways that are very, in my opinion, core to the point that he's making here. He sets it up by saying, I don't want to do this comparison to the Nazis, but it is interesting to point out that the first groups they shut it out.
You're not agreeing.
I would. So hold on. Be very clear. I would agree with the statement that, just to be very clear, if he said one of the first groups was LGBT people, I have no disagreement whatsoever. My disagreement is he's presenting an accurate historical narrative. That'd be like, imagine if I said the KKK was first designed to go after Catholics. That first it was designed to be the first group they went after was Catholics, and then one of the other groups is black people. That's just not accurate. The KKK was initially designed to suppress black power in the South. Yes, they went after Catholics, they went after Jews, went after many groups. That would be the argument I would make. Imagine if I made that argument. I said it's interesting to note that one of the first group, the first group that the KKK went after were Catholics. It's completely historically accurate. They went after Catholics. It's completely historically accurate that it's one of the main groups. But I think that you would see in that hypothetical, maybe there's something that there's a comparison I'm not seeing. But in that hypothetical, I think you would see the pretty quintessential nature of that change in timeline.
I mean, I agree with you, but like, I wouldn't. It doesn't feel like this was a malicious.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that when people make these comparisons, they're trying to be good. They're trying to do what is the number one message of the Holocaust. Never again. Never again. When people make these comparisons, I think they're very reasonably and very accurate, or very very non-maliciously trying to, again, they're trying to point out the actual, what they see is the ebbs and echoes of history. But in my comparison here, it isn't quintessential to look at the actual ideological history of the groups like the KKK or the Nazis. And something like the statement, the first groups they went after were so-and-so, is fundamentally different from one of the first groups.
Okay. All right. I guess we'll have to leave
that. And to be very clear, I totally agree with the next argument he brings up about 10 minutes later in the video, or sorry, about 10 seconds later in the video. And it's a much, much stronger point. The Nazis take dictatorial power. Hitler becomes dictator with the Enabling Act, what are the Republicans trying to do? They're trying to vote in an individual, and then they're trying to get rid of that voting Democratic ladder, so nobody can climb up to that position ever again to make a dictator. It's a much stronger argument, in my opinion.
All right. I mean, fair enough. I agree with you on the unitary point. That is your strongest argument. That they are trying to create a king. And if you are the type of conservative that conservatives like hierarchies. But if you like if you're the independent-minded conservative, whatever that means, right? Then that's a problem. Or just one who, like, again, who actually cares about the Constitution, then you wouldn't want that to happen, right? You would realize that, I don't know, that maybe we'll get a socialist there eventually one day. Things won't go well for your agenda. So 100%. But anyway, let's talk about the focus of it, like Project 2025 in and of itself. What are your hold on, before we do that, let me just take a quick peek at I'm just looking at the chat. Hey everyone who's here, thanks for being here. If you guys want to support the community, consider like a hyper chat or a super chat, whether you're on Twitch or on YouTube. If you've got a question or a comment, consider helping us out that way. It'd be awfully kind of you. Okay, but back to it, Project 2025, which is why we're here. So the thing I wanted to talk about with this, and I talked to Destiny directly about this because I was thinking about this a lot today and yesterday. Is that I think, as Second Thought brought up, is that this is going to be another failure of liberalism. That liberals don't have any answers for something like that. They truly don't. That the Democratic Party, one has proved that, like, it will use the tools of that. Well, I don't know if they've been fascist, but like they'll have no problem pushing off power to the executive branch, right? Diluting the Constitution because it's politically expedient, right? Because they don't want to be the ones to, an individual congressman or a senator doesn't want to be the one to send us to war again, right? So they don't want to vote on it, right? So instead, they'll just let the president do that. They'll just push that power. The Democratic president is also happy to take that power. When we had the opportunity after when Obama came into office, after the financial collapse, to prosecute people, all of a sudden Obama says the unbelievable statement is that we look forwards and not backwards, right? Only for this crime, though. For every other crime, you see, he can look into the past. He can find his time machine then, right? When it was time to prosecute Julian Assange, who I don't particularly like, right? He could figure that out. When it's time to go after Edward Snowden, oh yeah, that crime happened in the past, and all of a sudden Obama was all for prosecutions then, right? For using the Espionage Act against as many people as he did. Obama had no problem looking to the past, but when it came to the donors. All of a sudden, I don't know what to do, right? And when it came to actually prosecuting the people who were in power previously, like George W. Bush, for various crimes, right? Like the Bush administration, all of them were afraid that they were going to get prosecuted. They were extremely scared about that, but they didn't realize that the person that was coming in was just a Democrat. Was just a bog standard Democrat who wasn't going to do shit, right? So when it comes to protecting the government, protecting those liberal institutions, the Democrats so often fail, right? Especially when they're because their donors are the same donors for the Republicans, right? Look at AIPAC. Look at what AIPAC is going to do. AIPAC is the a political arm of a far right government. But Democrats take money from them too, and they do what they say all the time. And there's no pushback here. There's no intellectual distance between the two. They take that and they do their bidding, right? There is no. I don't see a defense there, and so like if Project 2025 comes into play, or even before then, in the lead up to this, right? Like, what will the Democrats do? Like, are they going to actually campaign against this? Is that a thing that's going to happen, right? Because all I can see them saying is that, well, okay, if these powers stand, then when I get into power in 2029, yeah, then I can I can fill up these offices, the people I want, and enact my agenda. I just don't see them actually resisting this in the way it needs to be. So I rambled. I'm sorry.
I one of the first conversations I think we had when we first started doing this stream. I don't think I'm going to vote, and a lot of these criticisms are things that I've become much more sympathetic to, and this is why. Even though I do see the Republicans as much more obviously evil than the Democrats, as you're saying here, if one side's evil and the other side is not doing much to stop the evil, at some point it kind of becomes hard to tell the difference between the two, or I guess maybe not hard to tell the difference between the two. Hard to tell if the guy who's not doing anything is actually not evil. I wonder though, like, what do you? I mean, I'm laying a lot on you here. I'm asking you, how do we fix America? But the prescriptions made in this video are mass movements, learn self-defense, and educate yourself. Kind of feel like that's a little bit. I mean, the second two, I guess, I don't necessarily disagree. I work out every day and I read a lot, so I guess I'm doing both those things. But like the mass movements part, towards what? To mass movement to do what? I'd be curious what's your thoughts on that? When you hear that term mass movement, what comes in your head?
This is why I wanted to talk to Destiny, because I've been itching to start this fight up again. It's like, one thing, honestly, is get the corruption out of politics. Is that like the Democratic Party can never be an avatar for like serious positive change if they're taking money from corporations. Simply put, like, it's just not going to happen. That unless we change how we do elections in this country, like the options available to us will always be beholden to the very people who are funding Project 2025, right? Like, that's a basic thing, and we haven't accomplished that, and it looks like, and time is running out. Like, we have the timer here, and like, and Biden or anyone else that would replace him, right? Except for like Jake Ugro, if he defeats Biden in the primary and then gets elected, right? Anyone except for him and I guess Marianne, but she's already done. They're going to do the exact same thing. Like if Gavin Newsom went to office, would he be a better warrior against a unitary executive, against conservatives in general? Biden says, these are my friends. He calls them my Republican friends all the time. These are his, and he's not lying. That's not just a turn of phrase. Those are his friends. Only others, because he doesn't recognize the danger, because the danger is not real to him, because of his social status, right? He is one of the elite. And so, like, whatever's going to happen, he's almost certainly not going to get hung, right? So, as long as that's not on the table, these are his friends. He's going to play patty cakes with them all the time. Mitch McConnell, he'll play patty cakes with Mitch McConnell. The Democrats never play hardball for their own side. They never do. They never push back. Like, sorry, I'll leave it there for a second. I
definitely see that. There seems to be like a listlessness. I agree. But it seemed like is there a single avenue of political organization that is not conservative in this country, that is not part of the Democratic Party? The BLM has been that's Democratic. That is that's a wing of the Democratic Party, in my personal opinion now. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe I'm over reading that. But that's been very much co-opted. climate. There's not really any climate movements in this country.
I don't know, like within any organization, I wasn't like thinking of working in any particular organization. Literally, the closest, like, and I realize how weak this sounds is like the DSA, right? Like, which is why I wouldn't brought it up. So when I was thinking of like talking to Destiny, like the thing he's going to ask me is like, well, then what is the prescription of the leftists, right? What do leftists do here? And that's what I was putting a lot of thought in. Like, what is to be done? I think honestly, it has to be part of it has to be that we change election laws, that we get rid of the money in election, corporate money. It has to be it. Like nothing changes. Destiny doesn't realize it. Destiny, he's like you. And I remember you, Trader. When you agreed with Destiny on the on money in politics not being a significant contributor to corruption or anything. He believes that. If you believe that, then you can't leave the starting line, right? Like in this race, like you don't like the gun fires and you don't even go because your shoelaces are tied. Right? Like tied to one another, like in a cartoon. And you'll fall down flat in your face. You don't have the tools to fight if you're beholden to corporations who are simply looking for a short-term profit increase, who are looking for you to get out of their way for whatever mission they have on the line. And it's not just corporations, of course, then, because you also take money from these dark money groups. Who for these billionaires who have awful agendas, like that they want to reform politics so it serves them and them specifically, and it serves the oligarchy. Like if you're taking money from the oligarchy, then you're gonna serve the oligarchy, as we have always seen them. So they can't even get started until we get rid of that. I mean, I feel like that's fair, right?
I agree. Here's something I wonder. I wonder what would your thoughts on this be? You made a really interesting. I like the analogy, but like not being able to leave the starting race. And this is something I was thinking. Seems like for a certain amount of people, and maybe their avatar is the destinies of the world, there's a pretty low bar of social policies that if a hypothetical candidate passes that bar, then they're instantaneously better than the Republicans, and there doesn't really need to be much of a discussion beyond that. They're fighting the Republicans. So as long as you talk about trans rights, as long as you talk about gay rights, as long as you talk about Black Lives Matter and talk about doing land acknowledgements and that kind of stuff, you're A-okay, you're chill, and you kind of are exempt from criticism because there's always this other group that we can compare you to, which are Republicans, conservatives, MAGA people, and you, in comparison, look so reasonable. In comparison, you look so progressive. And it allows there to be a lot of these like dinos, these Democrats in name only, that if you were to ask, AOC said it in other countries, her and Biden would not be in the same party. That is absolutely true. The thing that keeps the Democrat or coalition together is what's called the coalition of the ascendant. Minority groups, women, gay people that can all come together on sort of a general agreement. It's not going to be as shitty as it was before because they're, in comparison, very little increases can be seen as can be retroactively viewed as very monumental increases. It seems like that's just a hump that's going to need to be traversed, right? There's just a lot of people that get to, you're climbing the mountain, so to speak, that get to the little oasis that is like social openness. And as long as you get there, you don't need to talk about foreign policy, as we've seen with to quote Destiny, if one side has to win, Jews or Arabs, I choose the Jews. I'm paraphrasing him here, but that's what he says on Twitter, where that if the Arabs needed to be wiped out, if one side had to be wiped out, he would choose the Arabs. When it comes to foreign policy, that becomes the goal, that becomes the position. As long as the West wins, it's okay. And the reason always is, as you say, you can't none of these other perspectives can ever reach the starting line because you always have that thing you can push to. Well, at least we're socially progressive. At least we are open about this, that, and the other. That's what I was thinking. I know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that liberalism is just concerned with social commentary rather than like the economics or the mechanics of government. I mean, look at Destiny. He's not so concerned about the mechanics of government if he honestly thinks that billions of dollars being injected into the political system like has no effect, right? These are people who are just doing it the goodness of their hearts, and they get nothing in return. And like ah so
I mean, well, I guess like, I just have to say, like, think about some of the like, what are some of the things that someone like a Destiny? What are the topics that he is like the most fired up about? It's like abortion. It's like social conservatism when it comes to like social sit, and it comes to like immigration and travel and stuff. All of that is really throws a wrench if you want to like live in the big, if you want to move between like LA and Miami and these big coastal cities. It's really kind of hard to have that kind of society if you don't have tons and tons of low-paid illegal immigrants, right? If you live in a society where you're doing you like drugs, he's very open about the fact he lives a promiscuous lifestyle and likes drugs. I'm not trying to hate on him. You know what I mean? I like to party too. But I mean, it's like, if that is what your lifestyle is, then you're going to first things first go to a politics that supports that. And so it's like, what are the debates that he goes the hardest on? It's debates about like drug shit. It's debates about abortion. It's debates about like general, just sort of like social openness kind of debates. That's the stuff he goes crazy about. What's the stuff that he's been doing? Research streams where he reads Wikipedia history. That's the stuff he always talks about. Oh, I don't want to talk about lefties. They always just want to talk about 50 years of history. That's because it's like, you know what I mean? You get into the deeper shit and yeah, who cares? I mean, like, if your lifestyle is, I want to play video games and have debates about, abstract moral concepts and travel between the most amazing cities in the entire earth and do drugs, then yeah, like your discussion of politics begins and ends with Republican social policy. Who cares what's going on in Gaza? Who cares what's going on in any of these places? You know what I
yeah. So let's just start writing these things down because I had something else. While you were talking, I was thinking of something else that could be done. Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that we need to organize in a similar manner, right? Like and I not in what I mean like talking about lefties, not necessarily liberals, because liberals will never agree. Liberals will always hate us because they have more in common with conservatives than they do with us, right? Like, as long as you find a conservative who says they don't hate gay people, then that'll be the fig leaf he'll use to work with them on everything. But like, we have to be proactive in shaping the courts. Like, the courts, we should be putting judges there that are as far left, like that who will we have to be as proactive as to shape the mechanics of government for our benefit. I think it's like if this is the battleground that they're playing on, and they've been playing on this battleground for a long time. Project 2025 is yeah, this is not the start of this. Let me be very clear. This isn't the start of this type of thinking. This is like the pinnacle of it. But they've been like talking about like reshaping the judiciary for decades, and they have succeeded in that. They've been talking about weakening the administrative state, and they have, and they're working to do more of it. And so we got to do the opposite. Like, we literally have to just do the opposite, and realize these are institutions that need to be strengthened. That they play a vital part, and that it's a fight worth having. That the Democrats, like the Democratic Party, does it. Well, they very rarely mention these things. Like, it's not really that big of a deal to them. But it needs to be for leftists, because for all of our political political agenda, right? Like whether it's reshaping how corporate America works, like how capital markets work, whether it's protecting workers, whether it's I don't know, whether it's our foreign policy, right? Like reshaping our foreign policy in however way that leftists might want to reshape the foreign policy. All that requires this administrative state. And all that requires access to levers of power of government. And we on the left simply don't do that. I think part of it is that we just don't have the money. Like we really just don't have the money to do this. It's not as if like ordinary conservatives, right? Like if they may benefit from this. At least they think they do. They like their agenda benefits from this. But like rank and file conservatives, like they can't do these things. It's like these giant institutions that they create, like the Heritage Foundation, and like all those dark money PACs that actually are making this happen. And we don't have that kind of money on the left. And I think because we don't have that kind of money, which is why he's talking about mass movements, just mass movements in general, because that's all that we do have. We don't have the money to do this, to just like long term have lawyers and lobbyists, right? Like slowly chip away and to write papers, to write policy papers that politicians could then wave in front of a news camera and say, well, look what they've written here, right? Such and such institute says we gotta like glass Gaza, right? And so it was it's not my words, it's their words, right? And they say it was the best path forward, so we gotta do it. Right, so we don't have any of that like institutional apparatus. I don't know how you create that without money. I don't know how we do that.
To perhaps address this in a way that also applies some self-criticism to myself, I think one of the ways a nasty penchant that many people on the left have is to not want to dirty ourselves with engaging in immoral institutions. We don't want to see ourselves as supporting certain governments. We're not going to eat the hummus because it's made by the IDF or whatever, right? That's an extreme kind of example, but yeah. I think that I even did this when I was kind of pointing out some of the criticisms that one could have of institutions like the EPA. If you pushed me on it, I would completely agree with no matter whatever criticisms I could possibly cook up in my eco-extremist theory lab. I would agree with you. The EPA does more good than harm, all things considered, in American society. And my initial institution is to not want to engage with something like the EPA. It's to not want to praise them. It's to want to have the cool, detached, revolutionary, radical critique. And I think that while there are many people on the right that think that, there's also many, I think a benefit the right has is many of them just sort of have a presupposition that this is a fallen world, right? That like the institutions are fucked up, the bad guys are in charge. Yeah, you're maybe going to toil kind of meaninglessly, but that's kind of the whole point of things. I think there are a lot of people that, as I say, there are a lot of people that are in government that kind of are like wreckers, right? They kind of view themselves as dismantling the system they're a part of, but because they view themselves that way, they allow themselves to engage in a system they don't like. Right? If you're going to be an internal like saboteur in a system, you have to not like the system you're engaging with, but you have to know that as like your higher goal. And I think it can be kind of hard for people on the left to like not, if you view yourself as like representative as the thing you do. So if I get a career in middle management, I view myself as just like a middle manager that just like bought into the matrix. Versus another perspective that could view you as like you're not just a middle manager that bought into the matrix. You are a person that is politically aware. And you are engaging in the system and you're able to make decisions that other people wouldn't. And so I think it's not just money, it's people being willing to like both take the thought and as he says, educate yourself, but then also like enter society and change the consciousness, not just of yourself, but other people. That'd be like a small critique of maybe my own perspective and some of the other perspectives I see on the left is just not wanting to even engage. You see the system, this world capitalism, you don't even want to be part of it. You want to just go work at your little anarchist bookshop or whatever. But the world doesn't change from an anarchist bookshop. The world changes in the boardrooms of companies. It changes in the parent-teacher conference meetings of schools. It changes in the EPA meetings about environmental regulations.
Well, then I'm guessing you would agree with me that it's foolish to abandon electoralism, right?
Yeah, I totally am. Yeah. Overall, I do though think yeah, I do think that we need to be very careful. I think you would agree with me here. Very, very, very suspicious of any kind of, you'd use the term you used before, sanctification of these individuals. People, girl boss AOC memes, girl boss Ilhan Omar memes. Yeah. These are very accomplished women. These are very intelligent women. These are very intelligent, not just women, they're very intelligent politicians. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I could, put me in the shoes of AOC and I'd be doing everything, but her ability to engage in radical politics is limited. And so you see some people see her and they think, why is she not criticizing this and that in this way, and thinking, what is she going to do? Never be invited to another meeting ever again? But then on the other hand, you see some people just fawning over her and saying, "Oh well, we have an AOC, we have an Ilhan in Congress, we've won the squad, baby." It's like, oh no, not enough. We need to be very careful of the way that the system can institutionalize it. We can turn our guys into their guys.
100%, right? I mean, this celebrity, because we live in like such a celebrity worship culture, and I don't know if there are other cultures that don't celebrity worship, right? I don't not like we always level this critique against Americans, but like I'm not sure if other countries like just don't like. I mean, unless like you're a third world country and you like don't have the infrastructure for a celebrity, like unless that, like I think everyone does that, but still, the point is that like, but we have turned our politicians into celebrity. And you know this goes along with like the unitary executive thought, right? Policy, but like we created like our national daddy as the president, where we say that this person, we're going to put this one person up and something's going to happen, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It feels like we're electing a king. It really feels like we're electing a king. I've always felt that, even as a little kid. I'm sure you remember this. It just obviously feels like one of the most important things that happens in a decade is that we elect the president twice in a decade. That really just, even as a little kid, you just get this sense, the way people talk about it, the way things look. You can see it in movies and music. Sorry for interrupting you, but
yeah, no, I hear you. But that's it. I mean, that's it. Like, and it gives especially the people who are apolitical or like barely political, you know, like it gives them this like very convenient out that, well, I've done the thing, and so we're done. And the thing that, especially when we're talking about the left, is simply electing a president, and he's gonna do something. And like, so I would agree, of course, like we have the mass movements and the whatnot, right? Like, and educating ourselves and conscious reasoning, but like what you just said, like how like these presidents are just working within an institution and they have their incentives and disincentives, right? Like we have to actually, if we want change, we have to change the institution, change their incentives and disincentives. Like they have a party apparatus that wants them to do a certain thing. Why aren't we in charge of that party apparatus? Like the people on the leftists, right? Like you actually have to engage with that party apparatus because those things matter. Like the Bernie folks found that out in was it 2016 or when like it was like in Arizona where he was being treated unfairly by like the Democratic Party there, that they were a bull they like were trying to rig the race at that point in time. Like they figured that out, that the mechanics here matter, and so they actually tried to like go and take over that party for the next time, you know. And that's exactly the spirit that we need, because we like, if the Democratic Party is going to be a vehicle, the government itself is going to be a vehicle, then we have to have our people there. We have to understand that this is a worthy fight, and if we just say that electoralism is pointless and there's no point engaging it with it, and then the other side is just going to do exactly this. They're like, well, the machinery of government is open. There's literally no one guarding it. There's no one guarding it. Right? They didn't fight us at all when it came to the judiciary. They barely fought us when it came to our first attempt, or sorry, one of many attempts to undermine the administrative state when during Trump's era. They just don't do anything. They just hope. They seem to believe that these institutions stand on their own. That by sheer force of like constitutional magic, that these institutions will protect them from us. They will not. They won't. And unless we actually do something similar to this, right? It's never going to be on this scale, I'm sure. But like, unless we were engaging in that fight, and then ideological fight in the boring places, right? Not just the places where you get cameras, right? Not just the places where you have the president. Not just the places where you have a congresswoman who looks fantastic in a dress at the Met Gala, right? Not in those places, but like in the boring conference rooms, like in the bowels of the fucking Defense Department, right? Like, unless we do that, engage there, we're going to lose.
Yeah.
We're going to lose.
Yeah, no, I mean, perhaps one way that you can see some, like, what is and at the end of this video, he said, mass movement, learn self-defense, educate yourself. That totally is like the mantra that you get from left-wing people at the end of their like critiques of shit. Is that's like mass movement, educate yourself, epic self-defense, Black Panthers, we got there. The real part, and I think the fourth link there, I think we're talking about here, is it's like, take this shit into your real, normal, boring fucking life. Whether it's small things, big things, take these ethics, take these morals, take these perspectives. Don't be the guy that brings up fucking genocide in Gaza over the fucking lunch table and make everybody weird. But like, if you can have these ethics and you can advocate for your coworkers, if you can do whatever the stupid thing is actually in your life, not a mass movement. Don't wait until somebody says, "Oh, we're having a protest at noon at the park," and come to the park. No, you know what I mean. Actually take it in there. The base that in the maybe this is a way of looking at it. In other left-wing movements, one of the most idealized people you could be in the movement was a rank and file member, the average coal miner, the average individual, the average worker, the average factory worker who's just there. He's the link in the chain. He's not the top brass, he's not the lower brass. He just shows up, does his job, pays his dues. That, I think, needs to have some more glamorization. You know what I mean? A lot of the time in the left, we talk about the top and the bottom. The mass movement of people that only come in every great once in a while, and the tip top, the ideological thought leaders, the people that have a YouTube channel. Most of the people are in the middle, who engage sometimes with the top, but spend most of their life as just a normal person. And that's what I think it needs to be a little more focused on.
I don't know how people with YouTube channels at the tip top. I'm just kind of.
Well, I more so the ideology. At least they have a megaphone. At least they're having their voices.
Yeah, they have a megaphone. I mean, there's somewhere on that pyramid. There's somewhere on the spectrum. I think this. Are people watching? I don't know.
Well, I was thinking more of the second thoughts. The people that are getting sponsorships and are kind of being more legitimized.
I hear you. But I'm saying, like, I think it does, like, the very fact that I'm talking about this puts me, like, further down that spectrum than, like, the average person. But, like, not much further. And then there's Destiny, so you have a much bigger microphone, certainly, right? But, like, not that much further down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm underestimating us in the reach of YouTube. But like, I don't know, I feel like the mainstream media has more, and then
the anti-CRT stuff should demonstrate to you how much fucking power an ideologically motivated grandma can be. An ideologically motivated grandma that will go to every single student council meeting and will complain and complain and complain and complain. Squeaky wheel gets the wheel, or squeaky year gets the wheel. Lots of those anti-CRT measures got passed. Not because fucking Merle Bury, Idaho is like some embed of anti-cultural Marxism. It's because 25 people got angry because they watched a Matt Walsh video. They signed a petition on Facebook, and then the town does. That's how it works. That's how it works 99% of the time with everybody. People are too busy. You know what I mean? That's just how these things work. If the opposite happened, if there were ideologically committed left-wing grannies that were watching not Matt Walsh but Second Thought, and then going in and having their going and yelling at their city council members. Hey, even if I have my critiques of the Second Thought video, at least it balances it out. We'll have more yin and yang. We'll have the crazy right-wing grandmas, crazy left-wing grandmas. They can yell at each other.
I think that's right. Well, it's squeaky wheel gets the oil. But you're right. Like that, if people on the that's another thing the right has is that they have outrage culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
That like outrage motivates people. It simply does. In the way that other emotions don't, and
they have maybe here's the interesting. They have, I'll try for interrupting you, but they have outward outrage culture. They want to go to the people that are doing the thing. We on the left, we love being outraged, but we love finding out that we have a saboteur amongst our midst. That actually the epic bit. You're telling me the epic based Twitter account that I've been following has been retweeting anti, like racist memes. Oh God, no! And then it becomes an outrage at how could we ever allow ourselves to become hoodwinked? We need to have a 45-minute struggle session. The right wing though, they find out you're telling me that this guy's gay, and then it becomes now we need to find we need to find other gay guys to yell at just cause they're messing with us, right? That's something you notice a lot.
Yeah, I just think that but they go out and take action, and I think your point on the CRT is spot on. That and it was proven that it was just like there was an article, and I wish I had it on me, but
I remember you sent it to me. It was one lady who got all those shit banned, right?
Oh, did I send it to you? Fuck.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's like a small group of individuals who got all these things banned, right? It's just like they just went and they yelled, and especially at these boring meetings at the you watch Parks and Recreation, right?
Yeah. Yes.
They yelled at the Leslie Nopes of the world, right? They just went to these meetings that usually no one is fucking there, right? Instead of like these old farts who are complaining about like whatever is in their minds, right? But then these guys come and they just like get one after another show up to a microphone, and they're terrified. These people get scared very easily. Like, what the fuck? Oh man,
Okay.
so
If you're Leslie Knope,
yeah.
how many people come up and tell you, "Do you hate white people? Why do you hate white people? Why do you want all white people to die?" At some point, you're like, "Okay, fine. I'm sorry. I don't. I
Yeah.
love all people. Ban the book. No more fucking books."
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so it's engaging in those meetings, right? Those really boring meetings. And then, but there's also becoming the Leslie Knope yourself, right? Like engaging in local government. And it's something I'm thinking like, how could I engage, you know? Like if I was an economically secure, I'm not economically secure now, subset channel. But if I was economically secure, like how could I engage my community and do something that's positive, that slightly moves the ball ahead? Because these boring jobs, they matter. And these moments, right, when you thought they didn't matter, they did. All of a sudden the school boards matter. Like we see it across the country, where like there has been a hard right-wing takeover, and you got a lot of families who are just like in these like random towns, and who and these people are generally apolitical, but they see what's happening inside their schools, what these people want to do. Now they're all fired up, right? But you've already lost. I mean, at least you've lost this round, but like you've lost. You're on the back foot. Yeah. So we have to like be more proactive here, and I don't know how we can convince like a mass of people, because people. It's not like we are the first people to say these things.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But like we don't. We were only reactive to the right, you know. Once they've broken something, oh no, something like how could this have happened? Well.
Yeah,
in the dead of night when we were like sounding an alarm, you know.
Yeah, for sure. But not just to put it, just not only as a bad way of looking at these kind of things. I wrote this down. I saw an interesting little comment earlier today. Failure is the beginning of success. Okay, it's the price to pay for scientific exploration. That was a YouTube comment under, I guess, one of Elon Musk's rockets blew up, and that was like a Chinese internet comment I saw. And I thought it said mishap is also experience. I like that one too. Mishap is also experience. That's what I would kind of view these, in a way. I mean, obviously Trump is very bad, but I think if the one thing almost everybody can agree, and I'll have to pop up here in a second, so maybe we can agree in kind of a good note here. I think one thing everybody can agree upon: it got a lot of fucking people looking in places they never would have looked. They got a lot of people asking a lot of questions, got a lot of conversations going. They just you could, as you can say here, under a normal circumstance, you can lull yourself away with individual freedom for a very long time, and you can not think about these things. They can exist in the past. Oh, history stuff. History. So that's the good thing. It gets us. This is looking at these problems, asking ourselves these questions. Which maybe in another world, as you say, me and you, we vote once every 4 years. We have our little political talk, and we never do anything else because we don't feel like we need to.
Yeah. I mean, like going again with the reactiveness, looking at the abortion fight. That's, oh my god, that really like encapsulates my whole point. When I'm talking about this Project 2025, the abortion, how Democrats did nothing. Like it was a problem that was known. There were people on the pro-abortion left, who were sounding alarms like, hey, we need to like advance, like push the ball forward rather than just like taking a defensive stance, put legislation that says that this is a legal thing, and they were completely ignored until after everything fell apart. And Democrats even helped along the way, right? There was like the Hyde Amendment, right? And once the Hyde Amendment went through, then the Democrats acted as this was like a normal and proper thing. Why shouldn't federal money be used for abortions? Like, why not, right? We should push back against that. Federal money absolutely should be used to provide abortion care, 100%.
Yep.
But we didn't do anything about it. I'm sorry, you were trying to be hopeful, and I'm like raging again.
No,
So,
please. I think it's
and I,
important. I think it's important.
and I know you got to go, but just very quickly, just like yeah, they failed there, and now reactively we're trying to fight. And so far we have some success, but they're literally talking about reshaping the mechanics of government so that we don't get that success again. But 100% what you were saying before previously about like how this is an experience, right? Because we had this abortion failure. Now it gets people talking, right? I mean, people have to die while people talk, but it gets a conversation started among people who weren't going to engage previously. But now they're here. They are here. And now we have to figure out like what can we do with them? What's the most effective way to this? Now that they're like third eye, their political third eye is open. Like, what are we going to show them, and how are we going to motivate them? You know.
No,
So-
I just to keep going on there for a moment. I remember. I think is I'm not sure if you remember this. The argument made by liberal Democrats as to why they didn't want to push anything through, say to the pre 2014 when it comes to abortion, would say, well, we don't want to energize the right. And it's just so funny talking in 2014. You see in the background and like behind you in the TV show, like Trump is on TV and he's like giving a speech or something. And he's like, well, guys, we just can't do anything. So we don't want to energize the right. And it's like 2019 or 2015, like right before Trump rises. It's like, yeah, oh goodness gracious, we could never want to energize the right. Ugh, God, could you imagine energizing the right?
So many things to talk about there. All right, I'll leave there because our friend Kobe has to leave. But guys, I'm glad you came through and you were a part of all this. Support us if you can. If you can't, that's all right. I'll send you off to Stardust, who's on some sort of panel. Maybe she's on Tiberius's panel. I don't know. But off we go. We'll raid our friend Stardust, and